My name is Lea Ybarra, and I was born in Donna, Texas, but raised in Sanger, California. My parents, all my family was born in Texas. It's like that saying, we didn't cross the border crossed us. For many generations, we've been in Texas, and that's where my family is from. They had little ranchitos there, and it's a longer story, but something that's becoming more well-known is the fact that they were, in fact, victims of the Texas Rangers and others that, when they came in, they took away the land. So we might want to talk a little bit about that later because it's a really interesting story. And then my father came to California right after I was born, and then shortly after the whole family came in, and I was raised in Sanger. I didn't unfortunately know my grandparents except one grandmother because on my mother's side, both her mother and father had passed away when before I was born. In fact, my mother's mother died when my mother was only 9 years old.
Oh.
And so she always regrets the fact that she was only in the second grade. I mean, if you remember Texas at that time, it was segregated schools. So a lot of the individuals, Mexicanos, just didn't go to school. And if they did, it was only to a few grades. Well, my mother was in the second grade and her mother passed away. And so her brothers, which are the ones that were left to raise her, had to work and they pulled my mother out of school. And at 9, 10 years old, she was making tortillas and taking care of the household. And so she always regrets that she didn't complete school. Even if it was a segregated school, it was still an education that she would have gotten. But you know, it's interesting that even though without a formal education, my parents always read the newspapers. As far as I can remember, they're always involved in community activities. So they became self-educated, and I really admire that. And of course, really encouraged my brother and my sister and I to get an education, which we did. And then on my father's side, I did know my grandmother, my father's mother. My grandfather, my father's side is where the Ybarra comes from, and that's Basque in origin, although of course we're Mexican. Our parents come from the whole area when Texas was part of Mexico. And so my grandfather on my father's side passed away before I knew him, and my grandmother lived to be almost 100 years old. And so she has already passed away as well. But they grew up in very poor circumstances, and you know, my father wanted a better life, and so I don't know if you want me, how far you want me to continue the story. My father, both my parents had a very difficult life, and they were very poor. Again, because on my mother's side, the land had been taken away, and the horses and the cows and every little thing that they had. And then on my father's side, he decided that when he married my mother, he wanted a better life. So he tells me the story of when he first came to California. They put about 30 men in a truck, and it was those open trucks where they take cattle in, and it just had a canvas over it. And then for 3 days straight, they drove that truck, whoever was bringing them, drove them to California, and they would only get bathroom breaks like once a day. And so he even when he was 16, he was telling me the story, he had tears in his eyes because he remembers it was a very difficult time for him and the other men that came. Luckily, they survived. He got work here in the valley as a farm worker, brought us, and then we lived in migrant camps for a couple of years, but then my mom tells me that I got really sick, and she said, that's it, we're going to find a house, and so they did. We settled in Sanger, and that's where we grew up. My father was born in Donna, Texas. My mom was born in Donna, Texas. All of us were born in Donna, Texas. So that's it. It was from Donna to Sanger, from one small town to another small town. But then that was basically it. Like I said, we've been in Texas for many generations.